Welcome to the Work Your Money podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Wong.
I'm your co-host, Willie Morales.
Each week, we talk to people, either on the internet, through the phone, or in person.
We try to get the best business minds on this podcast.
Thanks for joining us. Subscribe on iTunes, and please enjoy the show. Today, we're recording on Google Hangout. We have a great guest. Her name is Shakeira Ingram. She is owner of AOC Real Estate. She is a real estate investor, motivational speaker, and a community leader. Hi, Shakeira. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Wait a minute. A motivational speaker? This is the first time I'm hearing that. What's up with that? I need some motivating now on our property.
Let's get started. Shakeira, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been in real estate for 10 years. It's something that I jumped into early on and stayed with. I'm now a real estate broker in Pennsylvania and in Georgia. I love having my own business.
That's amazing.
Sounds awesome. And being broker for 2 states, that's pretty awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm sorry, Michelle, when did you start? Like at 11? My God, you can't be older than 22 years old.
I started at 23.
Okay, just checking.
Yes. My kids keep me young, so.
Okay, good.
So,
go ahead, Michelle, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Willie.
No, so what made you jump into real estate so early on? Is that what you wanted to do getting out of college or high school, or you were around friends that were investors themselves? How did you get in?
I actually went to school for accounting, which is crazy.
Okay.
And in school, I decided that it was way too boring. I was not interested in doing it long term. But I was really looking for a career that gave me time to spend with my son. So I was looking for something that didn't require me to work 9 to 5. And I always liked real estate, but I wasn't sure exactly if I wanted it to be a career. But once I got into it, I just loved it.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about real estate. And you know what, Willie and I always have this conversation. I think every other day we're always having this conversation. The elements of having a real estate company, there's quite a few components. And now in this day and age where most things thrive through some form of social media,
Right.
marketing, you have to put the word out there for people to, recognize your company, but also to get some type of visibility for people to connect with you.
Right.
And and one of the things that we're always talking about is, and he's always going back and forth on, is our roles in the company. We're always talking about like how involved I am with real estate. That was one of the jokes that he always has with me. He thinks that I'm
I'll keep quiet on that one.
No, but overall, we do enjoy real estate. There's a couple of hurdles that we've gone through, to get to where we are now. But at the same token, it's something that we also, enjoy and being able to help other people along the way, because real estate is basically helping other people. If it's not helping a seller, it's helping a buyer get into, their first home, let's say,
Right.
as an example. So, yeah.
When you started, Shakeira, how did you end up getting into the, seller financing, creative financing aspect of it?
Well, primarily because the clients that I initially had, they could not afford necessarily to invest in a traditional way. So It wasn't like they came from a bunch of money or they just had, extra money around. So I kind of started off right from the back having to look for creative ways for my investors to get the properties that they wanted.
Okay. Was that difficult at first? You learning what is it, subject to lease options, seller
Yes.
financing? Was that difficult at the beginning
Yes.
to learn about that?
Mostly because, everyone sees infomercials and they just think like, okay, this makes sense. If they could do it, I could do it. In the middle of the night, everyone just thinks that that's the way to go. So like trying to decipher between what's real and what's not real, I think that was the hardest thing.
I see.
Okay. Wait, which I understand. I guess I think in our point, infomercials have been one of the factors for some people to get, I guess, sucked into courses and things like that. I think that
Right.
Willie can relate to that, and they
Big
make
time.
it seem so easy, that it's something that you can just do overnight, and it's not the case. It takes a
No.
lot of time and dedication, to really turn something into a company, and being able to get deals. That takes a lot
Right.
of time and energy more than anything, and sometimes not even months but years to
Right.
really hone in on getting, you know that craft of, making the connections, and just, again, it's just getting the visibility for your company to be put out there.
Right.
So
And a
yeah.
lot of times if investors, especially new investors, if they focus on the wrong thing when they first start out, they never kind of get over it. So then they don't trust anything. And then they just spend their whole time like kind of kicking tires instead of actually jumping into deals because they kind of feel like they were burnt in the beginning
Mhm.
with misinformation. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's kind of hard to get over that, going forward.
So,
um mhm.
yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
No, well, I wanted to add that in that element, I think that it it wouldn't be so hard if you're working with someone else.
Right.
If you're partnered with someone in that aspect, I guess you don't feel jilted. You don't feel that burn when
Right.
you go through a couple of bad deals, per se. You'll have someone
Right.
that would be able to help you cope with that, and then move on to the next deal.
Right.
So, Shakira, with you learning about creative financing and your clients getting into this type of field, creative financing, what's the most difficult part of it? Like to me, I don't know much about subject to investing, which is pretty much it's taking over the mortgage.
Mhm.
How do you deal with investors or with sellers that might even think about doing that?
Well, I ask sellers from the very beginning of my interaction with them, like we try to go through every possible situation where they could sell that is non-traditional.
Okay.
Because a lot of times the sellers, they're not aware that there are different ways that they can sell. So sometimes it's just making the seller knowledgeable about different options that they could still get money back for their property. That helps a lot. So then when I'm starting off with on the buyer side, I already have a list of options that the seller has already discussed with me and is willing to do.
Oh, okay. So you pretty much when you talk to them, you already given them, let's say, their criteria of what each option can bring them.
Right.
Okay.
Because it's kind of hard to do it any other way. So like if you have a traditional seller and then their property has been sitting for a while and they only have been talked to about traditional financing like mortgages and FHA loans and different things like that, it's kind of hard to then come to them later and bring up a different alternative because
Okay.
they're already focused on the one thing and then it's kind of hard to bring in another creative financing option. So I try to bring it up from the very beginning.
Okay. Hmm.
Okay.
So then I have like almost a list of buyers and sellers to try to match up.
You're right.
because sometimes it's just, once the seller's mind is made up, sometimes unless they have like a circumstance that would require them to make a different decision, it's kind of hard to change their mind.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Sounds good. Willie, what do you think about that?
No, I think I think if more realtors or agents were like Shakeira, that are more open to working with investors, I think more of these sellers could get their property sold
Right.
without, like you said, going the traditional way of getting a mortgage or FHA loan, and then their property sitting there for 60, 70, 90, 100 days. And then at the same time, then they got to lower their price by 5,000, then another 5,000. And before you know it, you're selling it 20, 30,000 below what you want.
Right.
And then on top of that, you got to pay commission and all that. And instead of the 100,000 you're asking for, you might get what, 50, 40, if you're
That's
lucky.
right. And I think too, because a lot of agents aren't familiar with different financing techniques, they're kind of scared of it. So sometimes they don't even share the offer with the seller because they don't understand it. So
Right.
like as a broker, I'm really trying to make my agents more aware of different types of financing.
I see.
Which is smart because now they are learning the other element of real estate, which is on the investment side, and that would help them work with more clients
Right.
if they know that they're investor friendly, which is really good.
Right.
Um, Shakira, I wanted to ask you, when you first started in real estate, did you have any issues with money? Because usually when you're starting out a business, some people they have some kind of struggle starting out because they might not have um, the money
Right.
to start the company, or some people, when they start, they might start, on a shoestring budget per se. Did you have that issue when you first
I'm
started out?
still on a shoestring budget. So yes, definitely. When I started out in real estate, I was only 23 years old. I was married. I had a child. So it's like my husband was like the primary income, which I was kind of lucky with. So he kind of let me step out and take some risks that I wouldn't have been able to take on my own. But it was very, very tight. And I had to be very strategic about the clients that I took. And, a lot of times when people start out in real estate, they spend a lot of time wasting time with clients that cannot buy. So I had
Mhm.
to really avoid all of that because I just didn't have the money to waste gas and time. So I really had to like start off thinking outside the box. So because I couldn't do marketing the same as other agents, I focused more on events and different things to make it a social thing where I can get to more than one person at a time versus spending thousands of dollars on marketing and hoping that someone would give me a call.
Which is
Wow.
pretty smart. I
It
mean,
is smart. Yeah.
I you know what? For us, it's the same thing. I mean, we've been doing this now to what, close to 2 years now, Willie?
I wouldn't say that. Definitely a year and a half.
Yeah,
'Cause
but well,
we started like in March, and then we got together more officially, I think, towards the end of the summer, I think. Right? Middle of the summer?
yeah, but
Something like that.
but overall, it's been like close to 2 years. And for us, we started as well on a very tight budget, uh, trying to figure out how we're going to, create the LLC. How are we going to market it? How are we going to connect with clients and so forth? So we can definitely relate to that, and we have we're basically going through the same thing even now. We are always constantly discussing what expenses, where to cut back on certain things,
Right.
where we should focus our the money that we do have and so forth and like that. And and one of the things that uh, we were able to really work well is a I use a lot of social media.
Right.
Um, connecting through LinkedIn, connecting through Facebook, and basically making those connections there, going out to meetups, meet people through events, trying to
Right.
see how we can do collaboration. And then my favorite is looking through the barter system, basically looking for ways to see what I can do to help you out and what you can do to help me out, without really putting too much money down per se,
Right.
and so far it has worked for us because now we have, something else to offer, especially now that we have a podcast as a platform. We
Right.
give those people, some type of free advertisement per se for for a service that we might need. So
Right.
it does kind of work out for us in that aspect.
So, Shakira, one thing I wanted to talk to you about, when you go to a closing, or, because I think the agent's main point of, let's say, not doing the seller financial, creative financing, because they want to get paid. So how do you incorporate your commission into the deal? Like, in other words, if a realtor wanted to do creative financing, but he doesn't know, or he or she doesn't know how to do it, in other words, to get paid, how does that work for them, for them to get paid?
Well, for the listing agent, it's easy because they've already negotiated their terms with the seller.
Okay.
So, like, they would just have to work their way out of that commission. It's a little bit more tricky with a retail seller because there's no guarantee that there's more money. So if a agent is working with a seller that's an investor as well as a buyer that's an investor, you can kind of cut your commission because you know that that person is most likely going to keep buying within a shorter period of time than if they were a retail seller.
I see.
So you have to just be creative and you have to have like whatever your bottom line is. So like a lot of agents just feel like they want to make lots and lots of money off of every deal. But that's not always possible. And it makes more sense to make a smaller amount of money and then you continue to have more quality deals.
Right.
So
And that
I
I
under,
agree with.
I understand that a lot of agents are not thinking that way. So they're looking at every deal like I need to make $10,000, $15,000. I'm looking at it like if I can work with investors and guarantee myself $2,500 or around that mark, and I have a good quality and quantity of investors, I'm going to make more money than that agent that's focused on that $15,000 deal. They're only going to get those, like a retail buyer is only going to move every 5 to 7 years, one time.
That's what I heard.
Whereas an
Yeah.
investor, they might invest 5 to 7 times a year if you're a good agent and you can really bring them the deals that they're looking for. So with my sellers, I'm already thinking about the creative financing and letting them know from the beginning when I'm educating them on it, how I would get paid from each of those deals. So some of my sellers, I'll work out a payment plan with them where they might not pay me my whole commission at closing. They might make a payment plan and pay me X amount per month going forward. But whatever gets the deal closed, then I'm willing to work with it.
Okay. But on the buyer side, that's already incorporated. Your commission, the full 14,
Right.
15, 2,500, whatever it is.
Right. That's already incorporated. And usually I'll have my buyer, if my buyer is an investor, a lot of times they're willing to pay part of the commission to make the deal work. So if the buyer and the seller work together to get the commissions paid, they might both pay less and still get what they want.
I got you. Okay. Wow, that's great. I think if like I said, if more realtors were able to learn from you, we got to have you at events. We got to have you at every event available because you can explain everything in detail. With the prop in the Philadelphia market,
Yeah.
I know there's like tons of investors there, a lot of absentee homeowners there. How do you deal with that with, the first, like me, we were putting you there, obviously.
Right.
It seems like you were open, obviously you were open to us, but what criteria are you looking for in an investor, even if he's a newbie?
I'm just looking for investors who, number one, that they're really ready to invest, because a lot of times I don't have a problem just sharing information, but sometimes my time doesn't permit for me to not work with investors that are really ready. So
Hmm.
no, mostly I'm just looking at they have like the basic things like proof of funds, like they have already talked to a lender, whether it's a hard money lender or if they have their own funds. A lot of times investors don't know that you could use your 401k, you could use different tools, but as long as you're ready to move. And also if they're kind of trainable a little bit, because a lot of times some investors will come to me, they think that they already know the market, but they're not from here. And Philadelphia is such a tricky place to invest, because literally what you might see in a magazine about an area, it could literally be talking about a few blocks in one area. So you come here and it's literally like a block by block, street by street type of thing. And if you're not from here, you might not buy in a good area that would make sense for you.
Right.
And so if long as someone is kind of trainable and they listen and are willing to communicate what it is that they want, I think that's what's important. Some investors, they really are not sure what they want, but if they're not sure, then the agent can't be sure either.
Right, because you can't help the investor, especially if
Right.
they don't have a criteria.
Right. So mostly if you know what you want and you have the means to act on a good deal right away, that combination is a good combination. It could work for
Gotcha.
almost anyone.
Right.
Out of all your experiences, because you have 10 years working in real estate, what can you recall has been a a pitfall for you, and what you recall has been a highlight for you so far?
So far, my biggest pitfall has been trying to put together a team. It's really, really difficult. And I talk to other people who are in business, and I think this is across the board, regardless of what kind of business you have. You really have to have a team, because you can't do everything yourself. It's kind of hard to duplicate yourself and put time and energy into training people, and then they're not consistent or loyal. So like that is like the biggest thing that can make or break a business. If the owner has a team and kind of can duplicate themselves, you can get to success so much faster. And in the beginning, I really didn't know that. So, when you become a real estate agent, you're kind of on your own. You don't really think automatically about having a team. But if I was able to put together a team in the beginning, I think I would be a lot farther ahead now.
Wow.
Okay.
That's a good point, and that's
Which,
a good. Yeah, we've been through that. So,
yeah,
and I
and
went through that a while ago. So it does suck is when you don't have everybody on the same page,
Right,
and and like I said, I went through that, and I had to leave because I was in a losing proposition. Why
right,
stay if nobody's going to be on the same page and do work?
right. And sometimes people just assume when you're starting a business, you just think, I'll just use the people I like and the people I know, and we'll just do it together. And that does not always work. You feel
It
like
didn't
people.
work. It didn't
now
work for me. It didn't work for me. They
sometimes
were
you
all
have to,
friends.
yeah, sometimes you have to separate that. Sometimes you're
Right,
better off working with someone that is not so close in proximity.
right,
um you know and each case is different. I know of people that are family members, and they work well,
right,
and that sometimes it does work, or husband and wife, and I've
right,
seen that, and that works. But you really have to have that commitment and be, you know on board, be on the same page. Communication is a key
right,
factor. You have to communicate what you like, don't like, what you see for the future of what you're trying to establish, and so forth.
right.
And I guess for us, it was a learning factor. I know that for Willie, he had one good friend that that they were partnering up, and then it just multiplied from there. It went from two people to like four people, then six people, and then each person didn't want
Yeah,
to take the
exactly.
responsibility.
I told
you know
Michelle that. Yeah, it was horrible, and nobody, sorry, Miss, I didn't mean to cut you off, but she knows the story because I told her nobody wanted to do paperwork. Nobody wanted to, get a bank account together. And I even told them one time, I said, listen, if we buy a property and the tenant moves out, we're responsible for the payment, especially if we go through a bank. At the time, I didn't know anything about creative financing. And they both looked at me, my friends looked at me like I was crazy. I'm like, we do? I'm like, yeah, it's under our name. That's how it works.
Right.
So, yeah, so, and then it was just, I guess for us, we work well together. We have another partner, his name is Marcus, and, each one of us delegate our responsibilities, but if there is something that someone needs help with, we do communicate it. Sometimes we will have a little bit of a discussion. Sometimes we'll have a little bit of a disagreement or an argument about it. But at the end of the day, we hash it out, and then we already know what the other person is thinking, feeling, and try to see how we can find a solution to it and have a happy medium. And before we even got to work with Marcus and have him as a partner, we had another partner, and that one, we don't have any issues with him personally. He's a good person on a personal level, but on a professional standpoint, we were always butting heads because he wanted things done a certain way. He wanted to handle clients a certain way. And for us, starting out as a company, you can't just think that you can't be arrogant about how you're going to conduct yourself with a client or connecting with other people to collaborate. You can't do that. Unless you have $1 million backing you up, it doesn't work for you. You have to kind of be a little bit more modest and be more humble on it. So that's where, we had to part ways. And, now we have, the three of us work very well together in that aspect,
Right.
But yeah, having a team, having or even a partnership, if it's just 2 or 3 people, it's really key that you guys are on the same page, have your own perspective, your own thoughts, because it's good to have someone that has maybe a different way of thinking that help you out to kind of balance things when you're making decisions.
Right.
So Shakeira, with you trying to, teach your agents or your partners, the ins and out of business, how is that? Is that continuing, or you got the team set that you want, or you still looking to get more team members?
No, we're always looking for additional agents because agents come and go. So I'm really trying to get a consistent team of agents. I have a really solid administrative team now, which is like the foundation for everything that we do. So right now we're in the process of really recruiting agents. I don't just want any agent. I'm not like a broker that's like, yes, everyone come. No, I don't want you. I mean, a lot of brokerages, you get your license, you go there, they tell you how much you're going to pay them, and then they leave you on your own. We're not that type of company. So everything we do is very tight knit. And that's the type of agents that we want, that really want to learn and really want to help people and not just are thinking that they're going to get rich overnight.
Gotcha.
So we are recruiting if anyone is interested.
Michelle, do you want to move to Philadelphia on the weekends?
Yeah, that sounds really good. This is more of a philosophical question. And I always ask our guests, if you had an opportunity to start over, what would you do differently?
I would trust myself more and not think that I had to reinvent the wheel, kind of. I think I spend a lot of time not trusting myself and then a lot of time not trusting anything else. So I felt like I had to reinvent the wheel. And you don't have to do that. Like, entrepreneurs just need to understand, someone has done this before. They've been successful before. You don't have to start 100% from scratch. So I spent a lot of time and money and energy and tears, like trying to just reinvent something that's already there. And all I had to do was tweak it and make it fit me. So I think that is like the biggest thing that I would do different, is just relax a little bit and know that, it's going to be ups and downs in business. It's just the nature of it. If you're an entrepreneur, you have something in you that is just like, I know that this can work, and I just don't want to do a 9 to 5. I just know that something in me is telling me that this can work. You have to kind of trust that and kind of go with it.
Sounds
Good
good.
point. Shakeira, with obviously the market being better than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago, but I know there's still creative financing available. But how do you see, for instance, like wholesaling and lease options? Are those still viable ways to get into? Because we've been hearing about wholesaling and how a lot of agents, especially in Ohio, are trying to get the wholesalers out of that state. How can someone work around that? In other words, is wholesaling going to be illegal in a few years, or is there a way around it legally?
I don't know if it will be illegal, but I hope it loses its popularity, because that's what makes it bad. A few years ago, wholesaling was really wholesaling. Now it's not wholesaling. People will try to sell properties for more than market value. Like there's no deals, because everyone is calling themselves a wholesaler without doing any of the education or the research to really find out what's a deal and what's not a deal. So you'll just see like 50 people who say they're wholesalers. It might only be 10 that are really legit and are really getting a deal, and they're doing market analysis and stuff like that. Other people are just calling themselves wholesalers, throwing a price out there and just trying to find a buyer. So I really hope that it loses its popularity, so that the real wholesalers can come back and get the deals and share the deals with others. That's what I hope. But I don't know how it is
So
in Ohio, but in Philadelphia especially, most of the wholesalers that I get calls from and they tell me the pricing for things, I'm like, I can find it cheaper on the MLS. So
right. No, because I through different podcasts that I've listened to, especially in Ohio, they're looking for ways that you can't be like a broker, especially if you don't have a license. So
right.
if you have a license, that might be a way around it legally. But I think that's the issue where some of the gurus that are, I guess, legit are saying, hey, you can't say you assigning the property when you actually don't own it. You got to assign the paperwork. Does
Right.
that make sense?
It makes sense, because it's very risky. I don't know if it's so much a good thing for people who are licensed. I would suggest people who are licensed not to wholesale, because you really are not given fiduciary response. You're not being fiduciarily responsible to your seller.
Right.
Because if you're working with a wholesaler who has not proven themselves able to buy the property, that's not in the best interest of the seller, which means that you are going against what your license says that you should be doing. So it's a little bit more dicey. I think if you're not licensed, there's a little bit more wiggle room. But if you are licensed, there are a lot of ways that you could be in trouble, like from doing wholesale deals.
Gotcha.
It's much better to do deals, if you're licensed, to do deals on the MLS. You can still say that your seller is motivated and you can still work out deals that way. But if you're licensed, you shouldn't, I wouldn't recommend it to any of my agents as a broker. I wouldn't recommend them to do wholesaling and be licensed. If you're going to do wholesale deals, like legit wholesale deals, then I would say lose your license and then do the
And do
wholesaling.
it. Gotcha.
In regards to wholesale, I have been hearing complaints about I think it was Willie. We were talking to someone. I can't remember who it was, and it was at an event, and they were discussing how with wholesale that they kind of shy away from it because there is always issues with wholesalers because they're not really like the authentic wholesalers. That what they're doing is they're calling themselves that, but they're either they don't have the property under contract, or they're selling, or they're trying to attempt to sell it more so that they can get more profit and things like that.
Yeah.
I just don't recall who it was that said that.
No, I remember that too, and that's what. And Shakeira's point was that is basically these wholesalers, the newbies, you know, they just don't know how to run the numbers. They go to probably one of these boot camps and basically say, yeah, it's 70% minus repairs, minus your fee, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, oh, I could do that. It's easy, but it doesn't work that way because you gotta, you gotta know the market that you're in.
Right.
You just can't go to any city and all that. And right, Shakeira, am I right on that?
Yeah, that's correct. I've even had wholesalers call me and say, "Oh, I got my numbers from Zillow," and I'm like, "That's not how you can't use Zillow. Like that doesn't work like that." So, I mean, I think that it's kind of making a bad name for wholesalers because, like you said, there are a lot of newbies that are just reading something or watching a few things online and then thinking that they have the gist of it, and they're going out and just making a mess out of everything.
Yeah. Where do you see, I guess, in the next year or so, where do you see the creative financing aspect of real estate going? Do you still see that it could work even though right now it's a seller's market, or or we as investors should wait until the market cools down a little bit?
It depends on what you're looking for. So I think for the properties that are a little bit more unique, not single family homes so much, but like multi-unit properties and things of that nature, I think that things like lease purchasing and stuff like that, those type of financing, that will always work for someone because you have people who are selling, they're worried about the capital gains. They don't want to get too much back for a property at one time. They'd rather, space it out and get a little bit a month.
The monthly payments, right.
Right. So those kind of things work best for those properties. Now, single family homes, depending on the market in that area, it can work sometimes and sometimes it just won't work. If there are a lot of buyers, it's just not going to work because if people know that they can get a full price offer or close to it and get the whole lump sum, they're not going to be as willing to do seller financing or lease purchase. But in other areas, it will still work. So it all depends on the zip code, like really doing a market analysis of where you're looking to invest. And
Gotcha.
only really I always tell investors, even if they're not working with me, you should really find an agent that's willing to sit down and do the research because you want to research zip code by zip code to find out what's going to work best in that area.
Gotcha. Well, that's good to know.
So, Willie, we're at the favorite time of the podcast.
So Shakeira, I'm a big reader. Michelle reads only, gossip pages. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Really?
I'm just kidding. So what are your favorite books? What book are you reading now? What books you recommend?
The book that I'm reading now is Jesus Christ CEO. I always come back to that book, probably like quarterly. I'll come back to that book just to kind of refresh myself, but I really have based my business off of that. It has a lot of good information. And like I said about reinventing the wheel, once I realized that I shouldn't reinvent the wheel, I went all the way back to the Bible times to find out what has worked all the way back then. Those same principles work now.
So Jesus Christ CEO.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Any other book or?
What Makes the Great Great? That's always a good book to read because really business it's really about something that's internal in you. You always see that successful people, it's not that they're chasing a dollar. Like I always tell my agents, like when they come to me and they're like, I need to make this amount because we go over their goals every quarter. And I'm always telling them that the fat pig gets slaughtered, but the little pig gets fed. I learned that in the beginning of my career, and I've stuck with that ever since, but it's so true. If you are greedy and you're always trying to figure out how to get a dollar, you're going to get slaughtered. But if you do things that make sense, but you can still be financially set. Of course, no one wants to work and not make anything. So if you do things that make sense financially, but where you're not being a fat pig, you'll be fine in the business and you'll be able to continue on. But the fat pig always gets slaughtered. So I always tell my agents that.
No, which
That's
is
a
make
I'm sorry, so that we got to tweet that, Michelle. The fat pig gets slaughtered. That's a tweetable.
that's a good quote.
That is a good quote. I don't know if
That's
you
a good
made
quote
that
that we'll
up,
put on the show.
but it's a good quote. If you made it up, that's great. If you got it from somewhere else, that's
I got it from
just as
somewhere
good.
else.
That's okay, but that's good. I like that. Where do you see your business going in the next, 3 to 5 years?
I see my business, my brokerage expanding. I would like to offer more investor services. So I would like to add a division that's really focused on providing investors with other services other than just buying and selling real estate. There's a lot of investors who need help with letters and administrative tasks and virtual assistants and even just deal analysis. A lot of people just don't know a lot of things and they need someone that they could trust. So I see my business growing in that area, as well as adding more agents to the brokerage. And as an investor, I really want to do more investing in multifamily units.
Right. I think for me, my part, because, me and Michelle talk about this, like
Mhm.
getting the help on that, like you've been like, we work together. So this way people, know. And Shakeira would tell me stuff. You have told me stuff like, hey, this is a good deal. I don't know about this. So you've been upfront, which helps.
Right.
I think eventually in the future, I would definitely like to get a VA that way to like market or if I want to send out direct mail.
Mhm.
I think that's probably the thing I hate most about it is just the direct mail and typing letters and writing letters.
Right.
I just can't stand that. I hate that part,
Right. And some investors just need like an additional eye because sometimes if you're
Yeah,
putting
that's what we're looking for.
right,
An additional eye. I
if
agree.
you're putting in deal after deal after deal, sometimes they all start blurring together. You're like, I don't even remember, what I did or, did that make sense or was that right? So sometimes investors just need like someone else who is objective but has the experience in real estate to be able to look over their deals and really, give the pros and the cons because every deal has pros and cons. So there's
Right.
literally no deal that's going to be like, this is the perfect deal. Nothing's wrong with it. I'm going to make all the money in the world off of it. That deal doesn't exist. So having someone that can really look it through and give you the honest truth about it, I think that that would be very helpful.
Where can our listeners contact?
I could always be reached by email. It's S as in Sam Ingram at aocrealestate.com. And we have a website at www.aocrealestate.com. We're on Facebook. I think we're on Twitter. I'm so bad with social media, but I
Join the
spend most
club.
of my time.
Join the club.
And for our listeners to connect with us, where can they find us?
Well, you got first go to iTunes, give us a review, give Shakeira like a 10-star review. So that means you got to do it twice. Everybody else could get 4 stars, but we got to give Shakeira 5. So go to iTunes, type in Work Your Money. Also, you can find us on our website, workyourmoney.net, and on patreon.com, Work Your Money. We can use a little donation. And sometimes $2 or $3 a month if you guys can spare it. Keep the show going. Pretty much that's it, guys. That's where you can find us.
Okay, cool. So there you have it. We have Shakeira Ingram. Thank you so much for being on our show. You gave us a lot of helpful information, a lot of insight, a lot of golden nuggets, and definitely want to have you back on our show.
Sure.
Possibly
Tomorrow.
Possibly do a real estate segment. We can
Okay.
probably do that as a topic discussion. We haven't done that in quite a bit, so that might be something that we can definitely have you on and discuss it in more detail.
I would love it.
And I want to say to everyone out there, have a good evening. Until the next time, this is the Work Your Money podcast. Have
Goodbye,
a good
everybody.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.